No one asked for it, but I feel this is necessary to understanding one of the biggest threats currently in Kill Team. The 2x nerfed Gellerpox stands as an oddity of sorts, one of the teams most purely focused on melee effectiveness. Out of the gate, they were decimating enemies both in regular rules and close quarters, and that second system put them at an over 60% win rate for tournament play. This mutilated pile of flesh and metal stood as a gatekeeper to many looking for victory, and even in their weakened state, they still stand as hands down one of the best close range groups in Kill Team. Real quick, if you love tabletop games and want to see more content going forward, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and leave a like if you're feeling saucy. Let's take a look at what makes these twisted abominations so effective even in their currently nerfed state for the Q1 2023 data slate. Whether you were looking to play them or go against them, the Gellerpox are a little bit of a curiosity in Kill Team. So many teams try and find a balance between ranged and melee to offer options to achieve the difficult goals and missions needed to win out the match. The Gellerpox throw this idea to the wind, limiting their range options down to at most 6 inches. The trade-off comes in the form of numbers. Including the bug-based equipment, the Gellerpox can have a total of 15 units on the field. Normally these numbers come with a downside in stats, but 4 of these units bring to the table a level of damage and survivability that make even the intercessors question their effectiveness. First, let's take a look at the team abilities. Techno-Curse was the first ability to receive a nerf last year. This is a constant active aura around your non-equipment units that reduces the enemy's ranged attacks by 1. That aura used to be 3 inches for all units and 6 for glitchlings. Now it sits at 2 inches for all units and 3 for glitchlings. Techno-Curse is one of the many layers of durability the Gellerpox have access to. When in a melee cluster, this aura can protect your units in odd ways. It can force units to waste action points to move away in order to maximize damage. My issue with this nerf is that it makes some components and tactics of the game feel a little less varied, specifically for the glitchlings. We'll go over that with the units. They still have their place and some good strats, they're just not as fun. Revoltingly Resilient was another nerfed defensive ability for the non-equipment units. Originally a 5-up Feel No Pain for all. The 5-up is now limited to the Hulks, and the mutants and glitchlings are now 6-up instead. The 5-up on the Hulks is still the primary survivability function. The lesser wound units will go down much easier without the better version, but they normally don't survive most combat situations prior to this nerf anyway. The last Gellerpox faction ability affects the equipment specifically. Mutoid Vermin. This just relegates these little bugs to being unable to perform pickup and mission actions. It also allows for an easier fallback for both them and the enemies they may be in close quarters with. This also doesn't allow their APL to count towards controlling a point, but as a benefit, their deaths cannot be used in the scoring of any Tac-Ops. The bugs have one role to play: cause some damage and die with no downside. The Gellerpox have a good spread of ploys to assist them in getting to their targets and annihilating them. Starting off with the strategic ploys, we have Blessing of Pox. Basically, after an enemy shoots your unit, you take a look at the dice you fail. If the total face value of those dice equals 7, one of them is converted to a normal save. Seeing as how your team only saves on 5s, this ploy gives a much higher chance at your unit at least making 1 save, rather than the normally more likely outcome of no saves. The issue I have with this is whether or not you are using cover. Taking a guaranteed cover save means you only have 2 dice to roll a combination of a 3 and a 4 or 2 4s in order to trigger this. 2 3s fail, a 2 and a 4 fails. I feel like this ploy is best used when cover just isn't in abundance, especially since the Hulks can only use heavy cover in their benefit anyway. Blessings of Infection is similar to Pox, but it affects your unit's ability to retain normal hits in melee. If the total face value of discarded dice equals 3 or more, 1 can be upgraded to a normal hit instead. Most of your units outside of the leader are hitting on 4s and have many attacks. The chance for this is very high. The turn in which the melee onslaught begins, this should probably be active at all times. Drawn to the Hum is a mobility-based ploy that increases in cost the more you use it. You select an objective marker, and all infected within 6 inches can immediately make a free dash as long as they end closer to the point. That doesn't mean you have to beeline it to the point, just that you need to end close. Moving in a slight orbit can give your Hulk the distance it needs before the start of the next turn to get the charge it wants right away. Devastating in the right moment. Rust emanations, like Blessing of Infection, is one of the big ploys to have active when the melee pops off. This gives all of your non-equipment units an engagement range aura of super injury. This is a kind of injury that can't be ignored by ploys or benefits that normally prevent the subtracted stats. For instance, the Intercessor ploy, and They Shall Know No Fear, claims to ignore injury. As well, their Methodical Chapter tactic claims ballistic skill and weapon skill modifiers are ignored. Both of these are overridden by rust emanations. Moving over to the tactical ploys, we have Pollute Stockpile. This can only be used when the select equipment step starts. You will need a fair bit of knowledge on how enemy equipment might affect you. At the very least, ask to see your opponent's equipment option list. Spending a command point on this before the game starts will allow you to limit certain types of equipment from causing issues. If you want the Farstalker Kinband to not be able to heal as much, set the meat equipment to only be able to have a maximum of 1 chosen for the game. Barge is big for the melee phase. Hulks are hard to move around, especially with all the smaller units the Gellerpox have to use. Barge provides the activated Hulk with a fly-like concept. This doesn't affect the terrain between the Hulk and its target, but when using either normal move or charge, the action is taken without consideration for other operatives or their bases. This would allow a Lumberghast to run past a beefy front line and get to the soft, chewy center of an enemy's battle line, wreaking havoc from behind. Putrescent Demise is the classic Nurgle self-destruct. All non-equipment units can use it. The difference is that the Hulks will cause D3 mortal wounds, but the regular units will only cause 1 flat mortal wound. Frightening Onslaught is a 1 command point cost, free second fight action with your Hulks. This can only occur if the Hulk is still in engagement range of an enemy after fighting, and you don't have to reselect the original target. Horrifying if you save up a bunch of command points and unleash a massive 1-turn multiploy combo. We'll go over that later though. The team-specific Tac-Ops for the Gellerpox leans into their aggressive frontline style. First up, my personal favorite, Rampant Nightmare. Now, this isn't always a good choice, I just can't resist score tracking Tac-Ops. Basically, you keep a tally for how many individual wounds are dealt by your Nightmare Hulks in engagement range of enemies. You score 1 VP if that number hits 30, 2 if it gets to 50. Know that the damage dealt is only based on the wounds lost. Swinging for 7 damage against a unit with 5 health left will only score 5 points. Also, the Lumberghast's ability that causes mortal wounds after a charge will help get points for this. You need to have confidence in getting to 50 wounds across all your enemies while mostly using Hulks. The downside to this comes in the form of the rest of your team. If I frag grenade a beautiful clump of guardsmen with a mutant and kill 3 of them, those are wounds I can't use for this high score. Taking Rampant Nightmare basically declares that the Hulks are aiming to be the biggest threat on the field. Pestilent Hosts, however, might be a little more doable. Upon death, enemies become tokens. Leaving a non-equipment unit near it and in control of it by the end of the turn brings that token into your pool. If you can kill and capture over 2/3 of the enemy team like this, you get the full score. This is good because everything about the Gellerpox is close range, so most of the time you should have enough frontline units in place to capture everything you kill. Again, the limit is on whether or not you think you can almost wipe your enemy out before turn 4 and have enough left on the field to capitalize. Tech Infection is probably a more standard Tac-Op to score. You have to infect at least 4 objective markers to get the full score on this, and your smaller workhorse units won't have much else to do in the first handful of turns. The ability does cost an action point, which is rough considering Gellerpox units are limited by their 2 APL, but Glitchlings and Mutants are both 2 GA, which means if they work in pairs, you can have this quickly done in 2 turns while the Hulks wreak havoc on the front line. Normally, the equipment list consists of items to improve individual units during the course of the game. The Gellerpox stand out a bit since their equipment list consists of fieldable units with their own stats and combat potential. Again, these units have little benefit for scoring. The rules claim they cannot be used to score points in either direction if they themselves are part of the need to score. If one kills the enemy leader, I do believe that it would still trigger Headhunter, but Rob and Ransack would not be scoreable as the friendly operative part can't involve these little horrors. There are 3 flavors of these vermin, and when choosing them, the equipment cost changes. The first time you pick one from these units, it costs 3 points. If you pick more of the same unit, they will cost 2. This limits the total number of vermin during regular 10-point matches to 4. 2 units of 2, 1 unit of 4, or even 1 unit of 3 and a single other choice. You can pick one of each as well, but you need to be careful. The Gellerpox are already numerous, and adding more activations will trigger more overwatches. These vermin are all GA2, but they still need a similar unit to activate with to get the benefit, so 2 squads of 2 or 1 of 4 tends to be the most efficient system. First up, the Curse Mites. These seem to be the bread and butter for most situations. 6-inch movement with fly and some of the best damage possible among these units. Sending 2 in and softening a unit up for later tends to be the play, and against units not at full health, the lethal 5 benefit helps out immensely. Just don't expect them to live with their 2 health and no feel no pain function. The Eye Stinger Swarm plays more of a controlling role. Full mobility with the 6-inch move and fly as well, but their core focus is on stun. Not a lot of damage output, but never underestimate a good stun in the right moment. The Sludge Grub is ill-used due to the lack of its mobility. Not only does it lack the fly keyword, but it also is limited to 4 inches of movement. It has one of the best ranged weapons of the bugs, but even then the potential damage output is usually low. They do have a chance at putting mortal wounds on enemies within 2 inches of them as they die, but this tends to be easily avoidable against such a slow unit. These are the vermin. They do have a purpose, some more limited than others, but don't underestimate them. Being unable to be used for scoring points makes them a unique threat in Kill Team. With so little tactical loss on death, they carry with them desperate tactics and Hail Mary plays. I'm going to approach this a little different here. We'll start off with the little guys first and work our way up to the Hulks, just for a little build-up. First up, the Glitchlings. You have to take 4 of them. Their stat lines make them ineffective in most forms of combat, but they have a full range of 6-inch movement, so there's that. On top of the team bonuses, they also have a 5+ invulnerable save. Normally good, but since they only have a defense stat of 2, it's like they are already constantly under the effect of 1 AP from any gun source. The invulnerable isn't their main source of protection though. They have a form of super conceal for that. If they are in conceal, they are always treated as having conceal, despite other rules. This helps them out against things like Vantage Point. Against weapons and functions that negate the cover, like Indirect, it doesn't really help out. Those units are also 2GA, which means they can move about the field with 2 at a time. Moving as a unit could allow them to perform multiple tasks in preparation for the other units on the team. There used to be a ton of value in playing up with them when their anti-ranged aura was 6 inches. Sadly, the reduction to 3 makes this a harder play. Running up to an enemy backline with a Glitchling basically ensures its death, as Super Conceal isn't exactly useful from 3-inch range. But this in itself is a strategy. Forcing a unit to have to spend an action point on killing the little creature could delay bigger problems from happening too early. It just doesn't feel as special limiting these messed up gremlins like this. The Gellerpox mutants have 2 flavors. All in on melee, which you get 1 of, and not so all in on melee, which you have to take 2 of. All of these come with frag grenades, which are their big general play. They are a little hard to position since they can only move 4 inches, and the 2GA will only help a little with lowering their activations, as there are 3 in total. But these make great frag-in-a-box characters to deter some forward momentum from the enemy, and their unit special ability to choose to take normal damage instead of critical damage helps out a little with the survivability. Sadly, the 6-up Feel No Pain doesn't help as much as the 5-up used to. In case you're wondering, there are times to choose to take critical damage instead. If a Melta gets a crit on a mutant, taking the crit totals the damage at 7 with the mortal wounds. Choosing to take the normal damage doesn't stop the mortals, which would make it 10 damage. Keep that in mind. Let's move up to the Hulks. The true meat and potatoes of the Gellerpox, or maybe just meat and more meat. Outside of the Thrice Cursed, all of these Hulks have to spend an extra action point on mission actions or pickup actions. Including the Thrice Cursed, however, they can't use light terrain for cover. As well, units with less starting wounds than 15 can't provide cover to them. The Gellerpox are a team where map layout can truly ruin plans before the mission even begins. We'll start with the Bloat Spawn. Not the most impressive of the Hulks, but it serves its purpose. One of the only 2 ranged units among the Hulks, although he is limited to 3-inch range. Its damage output is mid-tier, but like most of the Hulks, it is backed by a boatload of wounds, so the ability to sustain that damage over multiple turns is high. The Bloat Spawn is also designed for multiple enemy close quarters. Its swipe ability allows it to swing on as many enemies as it has in engagement range, so long as it lives through the return attacks. Also, if an enemy with 8 starting wounds or less tries to leave, on a 4+, they not only can't, but the action points spent are still removed. This Hulk is designed to handle many small units at once who aren't great in melee. A natural predator against the hordes of Imperial Guard. The Flesh Screamer is the butcher of the Hulks. Full focus on melee with good stat lines. Against 8 health or less enemies like most of the IG and Eldar, it can risk it all on 1 dice roll of 3 or more to instantly put them down. Know your matchups here. Using this on a duelist character is certainly not a good play. Beyond the quality melee play, this unit also serves as a source for objective control. All enemies within 3 inches of it have to spend an additional action point to perform either mission actions or the pickup action. Enemies within 2 inches are counted as being 1 less APL when determining control of objectives as well. This is not a modifier and has no other interaction with the enemies beyond determining point control. The Flesh Screamer is certainly a heavy hitter, and is up there for one of my favorite Hulks, but it sits just below my number 1, the Lumberghast. Though not as useful in holding points through APL augmentation, this Hulk will hold it by killing multiple enemies instantly. More on that in the combo section, but the thing that makes the Lumberghast so great is that its damage output is some of the highest in the game. On top of this, when charging with the unit, it need not spend the action point on a poor man's charge like the rest of the plebs. It gets to use spiked charge instead. When ending its charge in engagement range of 1 or more enemies, all of them receive an immediate D3 mortal wounds. This on top of the base melee damage of 6 spells death for most 7 wound guardsmen without any counterplay. Again, we'll go over a big combo with this in a minute. Before that, let's talk about the Gellerpox leader, Volgrar Thrice Cursed. Unlike the other Hulks, Volgrar does not need to spend an extra action point on mission actions and pickups. He still can't find cover behind small allies or light terrain, however. He does come with a flamethrower torrent weapon that has some of the best flamethrower stats in the game, truly devastating against smaller horde armies. His big ability, Lead the Infection, did receive a pretty sizable nerf in my opinion with this recent data slate. If Volgrar ends the turn within 2 inches of an objective marker, the team gains an extra command point for that turn. The nerf has limited this ability to once per battle. This makes the team a little more discerning with their points usage, but on the plus side, Volgrar doesn't need to end his move on an objective more than once in the early game. This should give him more action right away. Since the vermin are considered the team's equipment, Volgrar tries to present some customization through the engineered ability. Pick 2 bonuses from a list of 6 to augment his already fairly good melee weapon. Adaptability that will need experience to get the most out of it. If I don't have a big plan in mind, I tend to stick to +1 to normal damage and balanced. A free reroll to avoid the need for using a command point and normal damage of 5 is pretty solid all around. Normally, I would show how to build a team from these units, but the Gellerpox are a fully defined team. Outside of choosing vermin to suit your needs, you are stuck with the 4 Hulks, 3 mutants, and 4 glitchlings. Not much else to do, so let's go over a general combo I like to use. I would consider the Gellerpox to be a command point hungry team, specifically when it is time to cross swords and claws and other appendages. So let's set the stage. It's turn 2. Units have repositioned to find good footing, and a couple of Kasrkin have moved up to cause some pain. So let's return the favor. It's Lumberghast time. So initially, as the turn began, hopefully Blessings of Infection was used. The Lumberghast is strong, but it doesn't have a lot of attacks. If one misses on a roll of 3, it becomes a hit. It's just nice. For good measure, let's say Rust Emanations was also used. That is 2 command points before even this follow-up. Most likely by now, Drawn to the Hum was used at least once as well. Again, command point hungry. Pick and choose values for this. Maybe Rust Emanations won't be needed. Maybe the melee guaranteed hit isn't needed as well. It's all just what you are willing to lose in hopes to gain later. The Lumberghast could charge from here and end in position to fight one Kasrkin, seeing as how he has to go around the mutants ahead of it. But with 1 point spent on Barge, unit positions don't matter. This allows the charge to end much farther, putting 2 units into melee. But this is no ordinary charge. This is the spiked charge. A D3 for each Kasrkin knocks them both down by 2 health. Since they were both at 8 health due to the recent Kasrkin buff, this puts them both at 6 health left. 1-shot range for the Lumberghast. Choosing the Melt-A-Gun and getting at least 1 hit lands the kill, but we're not done yet. 1 command point spent on Frightening Onslaught allows the Hulk to fight the other Kasrkin soldier. All misses though. Thankfully, Blessing of Infection is in play. One of the misses becomes a hit and kills the soldier. Pick the level to which these benefits need to be in play. For example, Rust Emanations wasn't even needed for this. That's not to say it wouldn't be useful elsewhere, but maybe not. Blending different stacked benefits in your go big or go home melee phase can be the difference between life and death. Doing a similar charge with the Bloat Spawn against a bunch of enemies expecting it to die, but swiping every unit in the process to get them low, then spending a command point on Putrescent Demise to finish them off as the Bloat Spawn dies could also have a lot of value. The takeaway from this should be that the big combos and swings come from the Hulks. The small units have their place, but those tend to be simple or expendable. So if you find yourself playing against the Gellerpox, try and have a big play to drop a Hulk in a turn, and don't forget, unlike their Death Guard brethren, being big and durable doesn't prevent them from feeling pain. There is no way for these units to prevent the injured state, and most of their stats in terms of combat tend to be very middle of the road, so making that, as well as their movement worse, can control the flow of battle enough that it might not feel so one-sided as some people have claimed. Food for thought. Thanks for watching. Hopefully you learned something to better prepare yourself against the mangled mass of warp-torn monstrosities. Or maybe it gave you some ideas on how to decimate your opponent's purity seal with these denizens of Nurgle. Either way, subscribe for the subscribe god and likes for the like throne. Also, I have a Twitter and Discord linked below if you'd like to join our small but growing community. We'd be more than happy to take you in. What do you think about the Gellerpox? Have you watched your plans crumble before the might of a 90% chance 5-up feel no pain? You know what I'm talking about. Or maybe you discovered a grand secret that can turn the kill team meta on its head. Let us know in the comments below. Please. I know some people who could really use the help. That's all for this video. Hopefully we'll have more overviews popping up in the future. I am Kimmerix, and I'll see you in the next one.